here we go. And this smashing array of colorful candidates is your entertainment for the evening. And this is the procedure that we're going to follow. We're going to have first the RDCK candidates, except for Gary Jackman, who's already been acclaimed, but he's going to take the opportunity to say a few words. And they are going to have 2 minutes each. And when they're done, we'll then move on to the candidates for council. And they will all have 2 minutes to give you a sense of who they are and why they're running. And then we get to the questions. These are questions that have been sent in by email, and we have vetted them and looked at them and wordsmithed them, and here they are. If we have some time at the end of the evening, the candidates may have a moment or two to sum up, but depends on how wordy they are as we get into this. I'm going to ask them to be rigorous about adhering to the time so that it's a perfectly fair evening and everybody gets an equal opportunity to use their 2 minutes or their 1.5 minutes, which is what they'll be given for their questions. I'm asking you to be respectful of them. I don't want to hear any heckling and nastiness. Otherwise, we'll all get very upset and you'll be asked respectfully to leave. So let's all be prepared for a really good evening and get ready for what's coming up in the next little while. So, first of all, the RDCK candidates, and I'm going to call first on Roger Tierney to come out and tell us about himself, etc.
Check. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I'm Roger Tierney, and I'd like to begin by thanking my dear wife for supporting me so I can run. It's not the easiest thing for a partner to deal with. But yes, I've only lived in the area for 3.5 years. I live in Canyon, right across from the park. And we moved here from Kimberley. My background is with BC Parks for 35 years. The last 15 years, I was the recreation section head for the Kootenays, implementing capital maintenance jobs throughout the Kootenays. And I certainly learned doing that job that you must consult with the neighbor communities, the NGO groups, the user groups, to make sure that what you're planning to do in the parks, they support. And these were capital new construction, or capital repairs and new construction. And I'm very happy to be running in Area B. I think it's a wonderful area, and I've been campaigning the last number of days, and I'm learning the issues. I must admit, I didn't know a lot about them, but I'm certainly learning fast. And one of the issues that I think is most important is just to reinstate the area planning commissions that John Kettle had. It was a hugely popular initiative to find out basically what issues people thought were most important in their particular community, take it up to the regional district level, and also come back to the communities and tell them what's coming down from the regional district. Yes, and the other huge issue for us in Area B is water sustainability and affordability. It's been incredible the number of issues that I've heard about to deal with water. So I'll be concentrating my efforts on water sustainability and affordability. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. First off, I would like to recognize and respect the Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting this evening, the Ktunaxa and the people of Yakanuki. I know our time is limited, but I would like to thank and and recognize all of the volunteers in the audience too, because without you, we would not be working in the capacity that we are, because we can't do it without you. So thank you for your dedication. I know that this is the first time that I've been out in a public setting like this, but I would also like to personally thank everyone and the residents of the Creston Valley for all of your support and compassion and understanding going through the last 3 years. Going through a personal tragedy and then being thrown into pandemic, like all of you, we've had to reevaluate our priorities. As a regional district director, I have enjoyed serving this community and this valley. I say valley because when you look at the Creston Valley and all of the services that we access, it has been enhanced has been enhanced so much by all of the work that everyone has done. My approach has been a little bit different, but my passion is much stronger. Calling the Creston Valley home for over 40 years, I know the importance of this valley. I know the issues, and I am dedicated to enhancing our services and making it better. I'm passionate about agriculture, and agriculture is going to be our future needs. We need to ensure that we are investing in our agricultural needs, protecting our food security, and also working in our environmental challenges that are in front of us. Irrigation and water, as Roger had mentioned, is a huge priority in this valley. We've had residents without water. We have residents with water systems that are failing and that old infrastructure. If we're not critical on our investments, we're going to be behind. So my commitment to you is to serve your community like I have for the last 14 years in local government. I'm experienced, I'm dedicated, and I want to work because I love this valley. So thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Kelly Vandenberg.
Good evening, everyone. Rita, thank you. Thank you to everybody who has came out, made some time to attend. Thank you to the candidates for putting your time and your hat into the ring. It's very important. I'm pleased to be a member of this community. I come from an energy and an auction business background, and I've always served the communities from being a firefighter to a volunteer to taking on leadership roles and values. My wife and I have 5 kids, and we have 4 grandchildren. She is a teacher in Creston. We both have a strong connection to agriculture. My interest in public service comes from a strong desire to do my part in enriching the lives of my neighbors and my community. I have always served, whether as a coach, fundraising auctioneer, which I'm pretty comfortable with the mic, and my community. I have always, municipal representation, representatives are directly connected to the grassroots of their community. I have experience as a municipal elected official, and I'm proud of how I have served and what I have achieved. I believe strongly that I'm an effective communicator, always prepared, highly organized with a great sense of detail. Relationship building works very well for me. My business background allows me to understand the fiscal challenges and responsibilities in decision making. Integrity and honesty have always been my cornerstones. I have talked with many people from this and the surrounding areas, listening to people's stories and points of view, what they feel is working and what they feel is not. My job is to investigate and ask the hard questions to ensure service level standards are appropriate and Area C is receiving their fair share of fiscal resources. Improving on service delivery and efficiency is a strength I've developed from my business and my communication background. Residents should count on someone committed to the task of professional representation, a pledge to report and gather feedback, and a proven track record in returning calls within a day. I'm Kelly Vandenberg. I'm running for electoral Area C, says the red card.
Thank you, Kelly. Our last RDCK speaker will be Gary Jackman.
So, hello. I'm not running for anything. I'm going to enter my 5th term as Director for Electoral Area A, Windle, East Shore, Kootenay Lake by acclamation, which gives a level of comfort, I guess. I want to say it's good to see this forum is including at least a few words from each of the electoral area directors in addition to the large number of people stepping up for council, and why will become clear shortly. I want to touch on competitive versus cooperative local government, not on me. First, the feds and province set up a series of regulations and assigned some of the responsibility or burden to provide services to local government. Some services must be provided through a regional district, running the landfill, for example, so we partner with Town. Some services are optional as to whether a municipal council leads a service or the regional district leads. Our fire services have tended to move towards council leading, and it's been very successful. You'd have to take a very deep dive to get into all the complexities of the service, but the reason to talk about it in an election forum is we have governed for several terms across the Creston Valley and the East Shore very cooperatively with numerous shared services. In fact, Town shares 15 services with the regional district, including emergency planning and response, waste management, recreation complex, library, cemetery, museum, airport, and much more. So voters for the rural and town elections should have an appreciation of how we work together for the betterment of all. All elected officials, everyone standing for office, needs to recognize the importance and advantages of a mutually beneficial relationship and govern accordingly. Hopefully the questions and answers tonight will demonstrate an intention for continued spirit of cooperation by everyone who stands for office. And regardless of who the new team is, I'm looking forward very much to working with them all.
Thank you, Gary. Now we're going to hear from all our council candidates with 2 minutes each for an introductory speak. And we're going to start with Arnold de Boon, and then we're going to mix up the order of speaking as the evening wears on. So here's your 2 minutes, Arnold.
Is my mic on?
Your
Okay, there we go.
2 minutes.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that's here. I'm really appreciate your interest. And I'd also like to thank all the people that have put their names forward here. Running for an election is not the most fun thing you can do. Winning is fun, but running is difficult. So the main reason I'm running is because I care about this community. My wife and I moved here with our family 32 years ago. And in that time, I've taken on a lot of different volunteer roles. I am chair of a nonprofit housing society that looks after the apartment building called Catalpa by the post office. I am part of our Valley Community Services. I'm on their board of directors. I spend a lot of time volunteering and giving back to our community. I coached baseball when our boys were young. I taught fly fishing to people in this town and donated the money to charity. And I honestly never sought leadership roles. People tell me and ask me, would I be a leader for this or would I be a leader for that? And I've done it all along because people want me to be a leader. I have a lot of experience now as a leader, and that experience I hope will translate well into becoming your next mayor. And there are a lot of things I care about. I care about our fire department and emergency services. I care about fiscal responsibility in our town. I care about respect and civility, especially on social media and when you're dealing with politics and comments are nasty and there's a lack of respect there. That concerns me. You won't find a nasty comment from me anywhere on social media because I just do not engage in that. I care about families and community members. I care about affordable housing, as you know, because I've been involved in it for so long. I care about promoting our town. When I was a conservation officer, I got to see all of this country around here, and I can promote it because I know it. I care about health care, and I care that you got a yellow card up there. I care about climate change. I support open communication and transparency, and I care about stability and good governance. Thank you, Jesse.
Now I'd like to hear from Nora Maddox.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. I'm really excited that our residents are this interested in our town council and what's happening. I'm Nora Maddox. Most of you know me. I ran for council a year ago. I learned a lot, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on who I am. I'm going to tell you what I want to do. Okay? I want to stop spending your taxpayers' dollars behind closed doors with the approval of the residents only. I'm requesting the present town council and chief administrative officer to see signing any further contracts of any kind during the last weeks of their term in office. Do not burden the incoming mayor and council and the taxpayers with more debt obligation. I want to change the Town of Creston meetings, council meetings, to start at 7 instead of 4, when no one else can really attend. Most people are at work. I want to have it recorded on video and online, so the town council meetings can be available to working families and seniors at their convenience.
Speak into
I
your
want to
mic.
rescind the communication policy, which in essence impedes the residents from getting any questions answered except through the CAO and town council, and it's up to the CAO to decide whether it's worth answering or not. I want to endeavor to keep property taxes the same as 2022. I fought that last year. I have a record of that. I instigated a petition. I want the residents here now have already faced triple increases in carbon taxes. The residents have faced rising food prices. I intend to change our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. I'd like to hear from Monique Ares now.
Thank you, Rita. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Ares. I moved to Creston in 2003, and I'm happy to still call Creston home with my partner, Jacob Awashin, and our 1-year-old daughter. As a family, we appreciate all the natural beauty this valley has to offer, and we spend as much time as we can hiking, canoeing, and snowshoeing all the trails around the valley. I've worked at Kootenay Employment Services for 6 years, where I take part in understanding and serving the social and economic needs of our community. Prior to this, I've worked at the Creston and District Community Complex, and I was the coach of the Creston Wave Swim Club for 7 years. I have a Bachelor of Justice Studies, and I'm currently working on a Master's of Social Work. I am running because as a local and a young woman, I think it's important that members of Town Council are representative of our community. As a new mother, I care about the future of this place where my child will grow up. I am interested in the connection between our social well-being, economic growth, and ecological sustainability, and I think it's possible to find a balance with all three. I want to be part of continuing to build a healthy and sustainable community where residents feel supported, happy, and thriving. I would be an effective candidate for Town Council because I am open-minded and inclusive, and I have experience with policy development and interpreting legislation. As a critical thinker with a desire for continued learning, I will bring curiosity to each issue and ask questions. Most importantly, I know how to work collaboratively with a team, listening to opposing views and coming to a respectful collective decision. As Town Councillor, I would bring these qualities along with perseverance and integrity to this important role. Thank you for coming.
Our next speaker will be Ursula Waslovich.
Hi, everyone. Sorry. Oops. Hi, everyone. My name is Ursula Waslovich. We moved to the Valley, my husband and I, in 2000. Actually, we traveled through on business in 2001. And we drove through the Valley, and we just totally fell in love with it. I mean, the mountains, the orchards, the beautiful scenery. It was just breathtaking. And at the same time, we made a plan that we were going to move here as soon as we could to retire. So when we got back from our business trip, we put our business up for sale, came back to Creston, bought a property, and within a year we were in Creston and never looked back, and we would never want to move anywhere else. It's my 51 years of working life that I acquired I feel would be an asset to the community in the position of a counselor. As I only have 1.5 minutes, I just thought I'd I will list just the assets that I bring into the position of a counselor for the town of Creston. I have supervisory duties, including supervision of 21 staff members, scheduling, delegating, procurement, consistent monitoring of product to prevent the loss of profit for the company. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. For 17 years, I was running a successful, lucrative business that my husband and I started. For the last 12 years, my husband and I started a home renovation business here in Creston, and for my reason for running as a candidate for the town of Creston is that I deeply care, and I want to live here for the rest of my life. Thank you so much.
Just for clarity, I'll tell you all, you have 2 minutes in this round. And our next speaker will be Greg Banbury.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Banbury. Thank you all for coming. I didn't write a speech because I figured that I could probably handle this, and I figured I'd give it a shot. I'd like a challenge, so I'm going to do this without something in front of me to read. So my family and I moved here in 1988, so I've spent an awful lot of time in Creston. Obviously, I was quite young when we moved here, and once I became an adult, I'd moved around the province a bunch. I spent a bunch of time on Vancouver Island, and ended up back in Creston, like most people at my age have done. I went to high school here. I've spent time in this auditorium when I was younger. My son attends school here now, so I have strong ties to the community. One of my first jobs here in Creston, I worked for a farmer out in Lister, Glencairn Clydesdales. And I got to toss hay when I was 14, 15 years old, and we used Clydesdales to pull the bale wagon around. So I've got a little bit of an agricultural background. I worked for various farmers when I was a teenager tossing hay. I worked for Dr. Perrin on his farm out in Lister as well. So I got to know quite a few of the farmers in town. Given that I was born into a forestry family, I have a strong background in forestry, and spent the better part of my working life so far working with trees. Got a job as a logger when I was just out of high school, and pursued a career because to me the pinnacle of a logger was becoming a faller. So I became a certified professional faller and spent over 25 years working for various contractors in the valley, went all the way out to the island and spent some time working on the island, and then came back to Creston to settle for good. And while I was here after that, when I finally moved back to stay here for good, I decided that this is the place that I'm going to remain for the rest of my life. So I look forward to serving you as a counselor if I'm elected. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Greg. Next, let's hear from Anthony Mondia.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Mondia, and I'm looking for your vote for counselor. I'm pretty new to town, to be honest. I got here about 2 years ago, and I'm putting a lot of hard work on that house across from the police station there, if you ever seen the fence go up and the fence go down. So I promise you, if you elect me, I will build the fence, and hopefully you take that joke well. So I was born and raised in Sydney, small town. Spent some time up in Smithers as well. I loved it up there. My dad, he retired in Penticton, and so that's where I spent some time. But to be honest, I liked smaller, and Penticton was too big for me. And so I drove through Creston too many times, loved it, bought the house, achieved my dream, which will come to fruition in probably a year time when I get that fence put back up. A couple things about me. I had never ran before. This is all new to me. I was looking to get involved in town. I joined Fields Forward Society, started to help out there. I was looking at some other nonprofits. And on the recommendation of the mayor and a bunch of past counselors and my realtor, pretty sure you all know Jerry Smaltz, they said I should just run for council. It's the best way to learn the community and contribute. So what would you get if you vote for me? Well, I understand money. I have a degree in economics. I'm a chartered professional accountant. And I've spent my life understanding how the balance sheet and cash flow statements work. When I was little, my parents, blue-collar family, father electrician, mom worked for the school, And my dad, I said, give me an allowance. He's like, how about you go get a job? And so I went and cut somebody's lawn. Came back, 2 hours of work, $8 in my pocket. I was as happy as can be. And my dad said, give me $2 for rent and $2 for gas. You're in business. So that's basically me and money. Since then, I've been learning a lot about it. I understand it. I also know government. I've helped towns secure expansion of their hospitals by writing the business plan for a nonprofit medical clinic that became the de facto model of it. And I can do a lot of other things here, and I'm excited to learn and hopefully get your vote come day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear from Keith Baldwin.
Sorry, that's all right. Hi, my name is Keith Baldwin, and I am an incumbent councillor, and my campaign website is Team Creston. Everything you might want to know about my relevant background and values should be easily discovered there. But the concept of Team Creston emerged in an essay I produced for the Creston Valley Advance during my assigned term as alternate mayor early this year after 4 months on council. The title was Appreciation, and the audience response was very positive, including a surprising Reader's Choice Award of Best Local Politician 2022, just a month later. It seems that my upbeat perspective on how lucky we are here, in contrast to 99% of the rest of the world, resonated. It would have been especially welcome as the worst of the COVID pandemic was passing, although we had already seen 4 million infections in Canada and 45,000 Canadian deaths against a global scale of nearly 6.5 million dead. The link to this essay is at the very top of my website. In thanking the CVA readers for their kind recognition, I chose to characterize how great it felt to have the community working together to restore itself and looking hopefully to the future as a team, enabled in part by courageous and determined leadership at the municipal level. This ad is also near the top of my site and was published in the Advance in late March with the headline, Thank You, Team Creston. Moving forward, our CAO is council's only employee, and he is awesome. A sustainable working balance of mayor and council can only be achieved by a responsible group of independent candidates, free of external agendas, that works with the CAO pleasantly and professionally. Members must be capable of reliably doing the necessary issues, analysis, and decision-making over the next 4 years, encouraging effective collaboration locally and with other organizations and levels of government. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keith. Right, you're up, Scott. Let's hear from Scott Irwin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Irwin. I moved here a little over 2 years ago from a small town called Woking, just north of Grand Prairie, Alberta. I was drawn here because of the beautiful scenery. I've always loved the mountains ever since I was a kid. I do a lot of work on myself to try and make myself a better person. Every day I try to be better than I was the day before. And part of that ended up transitioning into me feeling like I needed to make the world a better place. So I felt like once they were accepting candidates for town council, I decided to run for it. Consider myself a lifetime learner. I'm always trying to learn, see different perspectives to issues to try and solve them. Yeah, I just want to try and make Creston a better place. It's amazing. I love it. I manage a business on Main Street called the Uptowner Hotel. So I see a lot of the comings and goings of Main Street Creston, so I feel like I'm really connected to the heart of the town. Yeah, I'm just going to try and do my best. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to find out what's best for everyone. I think, yeah, we want to make sure all your money is being put to the places where it's going to increase your quality of life. And I think if the taxes are so high, that should be congruent with a high quality of life for everybody in Creston. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Scott. And now we'll be hearing from Amber Bartlett.
Hello, everybody. I'm Amber Bartlett. I'm excited to be here with you today. I feel very strongly about this community and really want to be involved. I left the big city to move here for a better work-life balance and have never looked back since. The beautiful Kootenay Mountains and the infinite trails are some of the things that drew me here. The extremely friendly people, culture, and wonderful neighbors are why I will never leave. Creston really does have everything a person could ever hope for and more. I believe I will be a great addition to council because I am filled with passion. I am sincere and empathetic towards others and have strong ethics. I thoroughly enjoy solving problems, but really nothing beats a good, healthy, respectful debate to hash out ideas and determine the best solutions possible. I do come from a municipal background. I have spent 12 years working for and alongside the City of Vancouver. I am trained as a job steward and worked with the union to represent my fellow constituents. What skills I value the most from this experience is being able to listen, understand what is being said, and help resolve completely and fairly situations at hand. Being knowledgeable about the language in our contract and where to quickly find the answers proved to be an efficient way in resolving issues. I can tell you right now, the only kind of person I like being represented by is someone who will put their personal views and judgments aside and all together gather information to make the most fair decision possible. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Amber. And now we'll hear from Elizabeth Ireland.
Hear me okay? I've recently moved here. I've spent a good few years trying to get to the Creston Valley, so I understand very well the housing issues going on here. My background was 35 years at sea. I worked for the Canadian Coast Guard and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and I worked on the ships in the engine room. And it's a floating, self-contained community. So especially in the engine room, I got to see all the workings of everything that goes on to keep it going. The ocean has a lot of off time, which was a great pull for that kind of work. And my other passion was anything and everything to do with holistic health and complementary care. I got a master's in neuro-linguistic programming. I studied acupressure and certified as an instructor, and used a master herbalist program and holistic health consultant to combine with further holistic nutrition, and ran a successful business for 8 years while I was full-time care of an elderly parent who was disabled. And after the passing, I moved out here, and at my grandmother, and my wee ones live not too far. So I'm very excited to set up here and want to contribute something of value. I'm very concerned about seniors and the quality of life for them and for the generations that are coming up. And to me, the word of the day is adaptation, and we have to be able to be flexible and open and work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yep, that's you. Denise Duma is up next.
Thank you all for coming. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the Creston Chamber of Commerce, Creston Valley Tourism Society, and the Kootenay Employment Services for putting this forum on. Thank you. I'm Denise Dumas. I've lived in the Creston Valley for 13 years. I've been married to Jesse Dumas for almost 25 years, and we have 4 grown children. I'm a contract painter, and I've had a small business for the last 17 years. I paint commercial and residential buildings. I'm a very active hiker and an avid bowler. I currently volunteer on the boards of Crest Ceramics, Trails for Creston Valley Society, and the 5-Pin Bowling Board. The reason I'm running for town council is that I truly, truly love this community. I have watched my father serve for the last 14 years as mayor. And now that he is retiring, I'd be honored to have a seat at the table with a diverse group of people from different demographics and backgrounds who can work together and to make decisions to better our community for now and into the future. What actually solidified my yes to run, because to be honest, I've seen it's not easy. But what solidified my decision to run is that we went to the new Denver internment camp memorial this past summer. And while I was there, I listened to an interview that my grandmother did talking about when she was taken from Vancouver and put on the train and put into the internment camp. My grandmother and grandfather met there. And when they met and married in that internment camp, and when they were let out, they came to the Creston Valley. And I haven't actually met my grandfather because he died a month before I was born. But when he came here, he served this valley, and I want to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Richard Howes is our next speaker.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming today. My name is Richard Howes, and I'm pretty new to the Valley. My family and I just got here in January. We moved here with our best friends after checking literally all the boxes. This Valley seems to have it all. And the reason I'm really running is to keep it that way. After kind of integrating into the community a little bit, I've seen and heard from several people, there's 3 councillors retiring, our longtime mayor's retiring. So what an opportunity to showcase some skills, and that's really what I have to offer you. I spent a long time trying to become an engineer, and I finally did it. Practicing. I worked all the way through school to get an engineering degree in electrical and electronics engineering. So I've been doing that for some time now, applying those skill sets to service delivery for our province. So how fitting is it that there's a position open here for me? I'm hoping that you would agree. I can translate a lot of those skills of project management, capital planning, how do we prioritize all this data and stuff like this. So that's really what I have to offer you. After talking to many of these counselors here, many of you in the audience and in the community, it seems that we got to repair maybe some relational barriers before we can kind of proceed on agreeing on some of those priorities. So I'd really like to work with our elders, our young folks, all of this experience you see here, to figure out what those priorities really are and to dig into the details a little bit. What you can expect from me is I'll bring receipts. So I do my homework and I'm not scared to show it. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And now Norm Eisler is going to speak for 2 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Norm Eisler. I see lots of familiar faces out there, but a lot of people I don't know too, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Saskatchewan on a grain and cattle farm. I moved out to British Columbia in 1989 and worked in the forestry sector for 12 years. And I've been a self-employed registered massage therapist for the last 20 years now. I've moved to Creston 10 years ago. I do coach in the community, and I'm currently coaching the junior boys volleyball team, and I coach basketball, and I've coached baseball. My kids have gone to school here all the way through. I have one left in grade 9, one boy left in grade 9. And last year I was honored to be elected in a by-election, and it's been a really great year. It's been a great experience. I didn't really know what to expect. I've been interested in local government, but what I came out of it with was how impressed I was that we could have really different viewpoints in there, and they were just respectfully received, and we could come to a consensus. And we'd walk out together, even though sometimes it was opposite, really opposite viewpoints. And I think that's the way local government is supposed to work, because then everyone is represented. So after this year, I feel like I have a much broader understanding of how governance works. And I want to run for a full term so I can take that experience and knowledge that I've gained and put it to better use for the community. I feel like I'm a strong voice for people who don't feel represented all the time. I've got a strong sense of social justice, and I believe in inclusivity and diversity. And I want to advocate for policies for the whole community that treats everyone as equals. I'm proud of some of the work we've done. I'm really passionate about affordable housing, and we've put a lot of time into it this last year, and I want to see some of that stuff through. So that is me. Thanks.
Thanks, Norm. And last but not least, Jim Elford.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Elford. My wife Teresa and I chose the Creston Valley 43 years ago because we thought it would be a great place to raise our family, and it's proven that way ever since. We have 3 children and 4 grandchildren. I've always believed in service to the community, and in 1997 I was honored to be named Citizen of the Year. I served for 21 years as a volunteer firefighter, 10 years as an RCMP auxiliary constable, and I've served 2 terms on council. I was president of minor hockey, president of the previous member of the Rotary Club, and I served on the Thunder hockey executive. From a business experience, I was a partner in a successful business here for just over 30 years. And during my work career, I served on the board of 4 national and multinational corporations. So I have experience working with groups. I'm so very proud of some of the projects that we as a community have completed in the last 8 years. We've raised over $20 million in grants, which is incredible, and partnering with some of the local organizations, we've been able to complete the downtown washrooms, the timber flagpole, which is a favorite of mine, the pavilion and washrooms at Centennial Park, expansion of local trails, the emergency services building, an official community plan where over 6,000 interviews were held, the multimodal transportation plan, which includes a lot of bike lanes and that sort of stuff. We acquired the Creston Education Center and the acquisition of Kinsman Park, and those are just a few of the successes we've had during my term. I'd like to continue bringing those successes. Thank you.
Thank you. So that completes the first part of our forum, the introduction of the candidates. And now we're going to move on to asking some questions. And we're going to do the same thing with the questions as we did with asking the speakers to introduce themselves, and we'll mix things up so that we don't stay in exactly the same order. So the first question tonight is, how would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses? You're going to have a minute and a half to answer this question, and I'm going to start with Nora Maddox.
First of all, I wouldn't reroute the traffic.
Wait till you have your microphone, Nora.
Sorry. Okay, first of all, I wouldn't reroute the traffic through Cook Street. I might point out that there already is an alternative highway we can use, which won't cost millions of dollars for the taxpayers. The impact on rerouting the traffic, if you ever sat at a traffic light or driving down the main street and you got a big box in front of you, the only thing you see is the peripheral vision, and that's it. When you take the big box away from you, you have the whole view of the street. And when you have the whole view of the street as a tourist, you look and you see, okay, there's a Shoppers Drug Mart there, there's a restaurant there, aren't there some beautiful little shops here? Let's stop. We need to see the street, we need to see our town in order for people to want to stop here. When they're behind big trucks, they don't see anything. They just want to get out of town. Let's go. They don't stop to eat. They don't see Dairy Queen. They don't see anything. So we have to get the traffic off Main Street, but we have to use the proper route where it won't burden our taxpayers with millions and millions and millions of dollars in rerouting and trying to upgrade our streets within town to the roadways and the standards of a highway to take those trucks. We're still bringing all of these trucks, hazardous material, etc., through our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. And the same question I'm going to ask to Arnold DeBoon. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
So just to clarify, because people have asked me this question, why don't we use Erickson Road for the trucks? And the answer to that is because several years ago, the Ministry of Highways did a study that revealed it's not a feasible option. And the reason it isn't is because when you turn east in a big truck and head up that hill, especially in wintertime, there's no place to chain up. That hill can be slippery enough that you're not going to make it up that hill. So they decided that it's just not a feasible option. If you're going down that hill in a big rig and you have a problem with your brakes, you're not stopping and you're endangering people. So that has been ruled out a long time ago. And as far as downtown goes, much thought has been put into downtown revitalization. So we need to ensure that we still have the continued support of downtown businesses to reroute traffic, because if they're not in favor of it, we're not going to do it. In my opinion, all highway traffic should go to Cook Street, and the province owns the highway. We own Main Street, they own the highway. We can say, get your highway off of our Main Street, because we want them to pay for it. We're not going to pay millions and millions of dollars. We've been meeting with the Ministry of Highways for several years and with their ministers, because they're the ones that have to fund this. We have a piece of land where we can build a merged lane that will take those turns off to get onto Cook Street. Downtown traffic will be able to, or downtown businesses can move to the sidewalks. We will have parking on Cook Street for tourists. And that's the end of my story, folks.
Thank you, Arnold. Next, I want to hear from Denise Dumas. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
So my husband, daughter, and I went downtown, and we asked the businesses this question. One Cook Street business was concerned that it would make their freight drop-off difficult. However, they said this rerouting of trucks needs to happen. Another concern from a Cook Street business was that the increased traffic would make it difficult for the patrons to enter and exit their parking lot. All other business on Cook Street that we spoke to said the rerouting of the trucks would not affect them. One business on Canyon was concerned that regular traffic would take the truck route, and they would lose the grab-and-go tourists. All the rest we spoke to said it would be a positive effect on them. The following statements were made. Having trucks gone would revitalize the downtown core. It would make the downtown safer and more walkable. Rerouting commercial truck traffic would allow them to open their doors, keep their doors open, and also put some seating out on the sidewalks. Many are willing to add signage to the back of their businesses so that the Cook Street traffic could see the signage from the back. This is what we will learn from talking to the people.
Thank you, Denise. Next, I want to hear from Jim Elford. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
Thank you. That's a really good question, and one that Council has put a lot of effort into. We're currently doing a downtown revitalization study, and that's online at the Creston.ca website. I urge everyone to, as much as possible, complete that survey so that Council gets some direction from the public. The survey includes some of the possible designs put on by the multimodal transportation plan of what our Main Street could look like. Ownership of Main Street would allow us to have street festivals and other events, make it more pedestrian friendly. So Council is studying the issue. They're asking for public input on the survey, downtown revitalization survey. I urge everyone to complete it as quickly as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next, we'll hear from Amber Bartlett. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
A quieter, more pedestrian-friendly area is a fantastic idea. I would take a deeper look into how rerouting truck traffic could positively or potentially negatively affect businesses. I would consult with professional engineers, gather data on road designs, and monitor traffic flow. Having spent 7 years in traffic management and being a commercial truck driver myself, some questions I would ask are, is Cook Street or Cook Street or any other alternative route structurally designed to handle excess weight or the continuous volume of truck traffic? Do the current street designs, traffic light cycles, road markings support commercial traffic on Cook Street and 16th Avenue? And if not, what would be the cost to upgrade it? Does Creston, the town of Creston, have it in their budget to maintain the increased wear and tear on their own roads? Now, depending on the cost of the project, we might even look at other alternative options to create a more quiet, beautiful, clean place for us all. We could find some space. We could find more spaces for businesses to develop within the adjacent streets, with a goal to encourage more small business growth in our downtown area, maybe even model it similar to Cranbrook's downtown area. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And our next speaker is Richard Howes. And how would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact downtown businesses?
Well, thanks, Denise, for doing the homework and asking those questions. It's interesting to hear they don't figure they'd be impacted so much. What my concern would be is this the best way to divert traffic through our community? From what I can see, that's a pretty important road for us. On the other side of Cook Street is obviously the Independent and all our parks and stuff, so if people are going to be hanging out downtown, they're going to have to cross that highway. So I think I'd like to investigate a little bit more, but more importantly, I'd like to understand what the priorities for the Ministry of Transportation are so we can escalate this a little bit and get some eyes on it. I think that other municipalities have also went through something similar, and I'd be interested to see what they've done to resolve such issues, you know, my safety concern, impact of businesses and things like that. So I'll give the time back. That's what I have to say on that topic.
Thank you very much, Richard. Next, we'll hear from Keith Baldwin. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
Thank you. Well, before considering any changes to the current configuration of Cook and Canyon Streets, including realignment of Highway 3 and any intersection adjustments, Council will be undertaking a thorough downtown revitalization study using professional facilitators to help envision various impacts, options, and future opportunities in the existing core. The preliminary phase of this consultation and research process has in fact just begun. Together with town staff and other expert planners, in 2023 we will be considering a wide range of connected future implications, including, but not limited to, the multimodal transportation plan, parking, pedestrian and cycling flows, Market Park, and a potential cultural corridor. Collaboration is key. Looking at any one variable in isolation, such as diverting through traffic, would be unproductive and limit solutions to just either-or scenarios. Instead, we will explore and discuss the options in a holistic, technically informed manner with all stakeholders to ensure that we can reach a reliable, broadly based consensus sufficient to open negotiations with MODI if that is the direction we choose. In any case, managing current expectations will be critical, as MODI has no interest in actually making any enhancements to the roadway beyond current standards, as there is no incremental functionality from a traffic point of view. I'll stop. There's more. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Keith. And now, Elizabeth Ireland, would you answer the question of how would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
Thank you, Rita. I took a drive down Cook Street and looking at the issues and stuff, and I was looking for the truck route signs that would recognize the standard grade of the road, and I didn't see that, and so I recognized that that might be an issue to look at. And as has already been suggested, the parking at the Independent and everything else, but what was really glaring to me is 4 trucks in a row, emergency services on the corner across from a high school. I think there's got to be a better solution. I'm not sure what that is. I think it takes some consideration and some professional input to figure out what we can do about that. That just seemed to me like that was a hard no for me. I didn't see that at all. But absolutely moving the traffic out from town and all that congestion, it would be alleviating the noise and the fumes and certainly improving access to downtown businesses. And I don't think downtown should actually just be stuck to one street. So for future, I see that we need to look at that aspect of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And now, Greg Banbury, would you answer, how would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
So, as mentioned by a few of the other speakers here, usually I'm loud enough, I don't need a microphone. At least I've been told anyway. So, I feel that rerouting truck traffic away from the downtown core and Canyon Street in particular would have a positive impact on our downtown businesses, with a reduction in the volume of truck traffic that on average doesn't engage with the downtown businesses. This would alleviate a significant portion of the congestion seen during the tourist season. Anyone that's sat at stoplights in the middle of the summer could probably attest to that. I don't think it's as easy as just diverting truck traffic to Cook Street, because as previously mentioned, there are a lot of other issues in that itself as well. Cook Street is now the home of the new emergency services building. So we're routing all the truck traffic there. If there's any type of an emergency and potential conflict with the trucks moving through there, also going out to exit along 16th, if that's where the road is planned, that's right next to our high school. Lots of students back and forth, so I see potential conflict with that as well. But if we do move the traffic away from downtown, less truck traffic would allow for more streamlined movement between our businesses and pedestrians, and would also benefit with reduced congestion, result in potentially higher volumes for our businesses in the downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. And now we'll hear from Scott Irwin. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
I think the big trucks going past businesses make it a pretty unappealing place to spend time, bottom line. The loud trucks are very distracting to the consumers. It all draws attention away from the products the businesses are trying to sell. I mean, we've all walked down Main Street during the day and it's a nightmare. No one wants to spend any time looking around, can't talk because of the noise, the air quality is bad. People don't want to spend any time there, especially at rush hour. I know when I first moved here, my parents came with me and we spent a day walking around Creston, and that was one of the first things that they picked up on. They're thinking like, why are all these big trucks coming down here? We can't have a conversation. Not very nice to look at businesses across the road when there are big trucks going by. Yeah, for example, I manage that business in town, and I know it makes it very difficult for consumers to see my business coming up when there's a big truck in front of them blocking everything but the peripheral. By the time they see the sign, they're already pretty much past it, and then they would have to wait for traffic, turn left, or try and figure out another way to turn around and get back. By then, they're probably already thinking, well, I might as well just go see the next hotel in town, I guess, in my case, but you know what I mean. So I definitely agree with making a changing the truck traffic somewhere else, but I think there's a way better options than Cook Street. I think Cook Street is still too close to the main street. We need them to be somewhere we can't see them or hear them when we're trying to peacefully go about our business on Main Street.
Thank you very much, Scott. And now Monique Ares. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
So I think rerouting truck traffic and making our main street more pedestrian and cyclist friendly will have a positive impact on their downtown businesses. With more boutique shops popping up, such as Page Boy, Modern Alchemy, Greater Goods, we want Canyon Street to be a place where folks can enjoy spending their time perusing stores and boosting our local economy. While Creston wants to reroute truck traffic, the long-term plan, according to the Multimodal Transportation Plan and the Downtown Revitalization Plan, is to reduce traffic overall and reduce storefront parking. I think about the amount of times I've done loops trying to get a parking spot on Main Street just to get a spot right in front of the store I want to run into. If I park behind or up the street and walk, I'm more likely to pop into other businesses as I pass by, especially if it's an enjoyable experience to walk down the road. Less noisy traffic, specifically from big trucks, will create an environment where people will enjoy spending time going in and out of stores. I've also read some studies that show that pedestrians spend more money than motorists during their visits and will return more frequently. Additionally, rerouting truck traffic will give Creston residents a sense of ownership of their downtown core, making it a public space that everyone can enjoy.
Thank you, Monique. And now Anthony Mondia. How would rerouting truck traffic to Cook Street impact the downtown businesses?
Yeah, so I had quite a lot of exposure to this in my previous roles. I was the general manager of a community futures in Penticton and worked up in the business sector in Smithers. The key revenue driver for businesses, especially retail, is foot traffic. And so that's people walking by it. You got to get people out of cars. And that's a really important thing. Also for restaurants, it's more seating, patios. The one thing that Creston's quite unique with in all the Kootenays in the area is we got the best weather. Talk to anybody from Nelson, they're like, it's so sunny there. I'm like, yes. You come out here, you try to sit on Jimmy's, see all the trucks going by, just like Scott was saying, ain't going to happen. It's not, you can't even have a conversation. I like how Monique cited that. It's about 37% extra that people spend when they're walking, pedestrians over motorists. So that business case has kind of already been nailed down and sorted out. I really think that we need to diversify our tax base. Right now it's too heavily dependent upon residential. We need to have more taxes coming from business sector. We have one of the lowest tax rates in the area from businesses, and we get not a disproportionately less amount from businesses than other communities in the Kootenays. So it's not about bringing a new business to town, it's about making our existing businesses more profitable, increasing their value, and then we're going to increase our tax base from that. So that's my answer, and we got sun here. It's special. Let's leverage climate. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Ursula Waslovich, would you answer the question?
You bet. Thank you. I do not believe we should reroute those trucks to through Cook Street because that's still way too close to downtown. I feel that trucks should be driving through Erickson Road, which is Highway 21, and I know that hill is very steep, but I'm sure a lot of other communities have had the same problem, and perhaps we have to do a little bit more research and find out exactly how they dealt with that problem that is most cost effective, especially these times. And as far as the downtown and as far as patrolling, we should hire the RCMP or ask the RCMP to make sure that these trucks use the proper route and perhaps give them tickets. That would bring a few dollars into our town coffers as well. And as far as downtown I don't even have to repeat myself because everyone else said that downtown would be a much better place to wander through, go shopping, and actually enjoy a coffee or an ice cream cone without a truck zooming by you and you almost choke on the fumes. Thank you so much. That's all I need to say.
Thank you, Ursula. And the last word goes to you, Norm Eisler.
Well, it seems pretty universal up here that people agree that semis on our downtown street is not ideal. When I first moved here, just fell in love with the town, but the one thing that happened was walking down the street, and my youngest was a toddler at the time, and we came from a pretty small place and it was really quiet, but a logging truck came by and he just started crying. He's not here, so I can tell the story. And that was our experience with downtown. And we're like, wow, this is really bizarre here. Like it's, it didn't make you want to stay. I think we've all had that experience of having conversations interrupted or trying to turn left to go to the credit union on a long weekend, you know, or waiting for someone to parallel park. So, and there's been a lot of conversations with Modi, and I think we can actually get this done. This has been a conversation that's been happening in this town for what, 60? Okay, there you go. I think it's time, and I think we can actually do it this time. It's a great benefit to businesses. You know, and you have to talk to. I was talking to a business owner today that had, you know, wasn't quite sure, but they thought that would probably increase their business. And I love going to towns that have patios, and it's just alive and vibrant. And I think that's what we want here. Thanks.
Thanks, Norm. So that was our first question. Now for our second. And first of all, I'm going to ask Arnold de Boon to answer. What steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
So to tell you the truth, we have more water security than you realize. We have a pump on an aquifer at Sikorsky Park, and I think we spent about $3.5 million on that. It was recently completed, and about 75% of it was paid for by grants. We have a pump on a very good aquifer in the valley bottom near Pine Profiles. So if Arrow Creek were to run dry, we're not out of water in this town. But there are things that we can do. We need to ensure that our water lines aren't leaking and replace the aging infrastructure when we see there's a problem. We have a solid capital planning. We have solid capital planning and money in reserves to do those type of things, and so we do that. But we have no direct control over watersheds. That's provincial government authority, but through the Union of BC Municipalities, communities like ours urge the government to make regulations that protect watersheds. And Arrow Creek watershed has to be protected. And so that, again, adds to our water security. We do some water rationing. We try to advise zero-scape gardening where you can plant things that don't take as much water. We have a water conservation plan that was adopted in 2007. We have a $50 rebate for low-flow toilets. And we just need to be aware of the impacts of climate change, plan ahead, and actually we have a very high level of satisfaction on our drinking water quality as it is.
Thanks, Arnold. Nora Maddox, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
I would ask our residents to become more aware of the water usage in their homes. If you ask them to join you in the mission on water conservation, I'm sure 99% of our residents would be happy to join. Mandating people to do your bidding is not conducive to cooperation. That's common sense, just tells you that. Charging them more fees is not going to save water. No different than the garbage collection. Just because the garbage isn't picked up by the garbage collector doesn't mean it doesn't go to the landfill. It just means we have to pay more to dispose of our garbage when we take it there. I'd put more pressure on the provincial government to protect our watersheds instead of encouraging logging in those areas. And as I'm not yet the mayor, I'm not privy to all of the studies that have been performed in the past. Once I have the information, and once the councillors have the information to consider, there would be a lot more ideas that would come forward. Right now, I'd be lying if I said that I had all the answers. The residents of Creston love their town. They would cooperate in protecting whatever it takes, but they don't appreciate being taxed to death, and that's what I feel now, out of their homes, deciding whether they can put food on their table. So I ask everyone here to really consider what we are facing in this election. Mandating or cooperation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nora. Monique Aries, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
So ensuring water security will be one of the many challenges we face as a community in the years to come due to the increasing effects of climate change. It's important that we start to take steps now to avoid catastrophic consequences. In general, I think it's important that we continually maintain and improve our water collection and distribution systems to ensure they are working as effectively as possible, thereby avoiding any major unexpected costs. It will also be important to find ways to use water more efficiently. This could include investigating ways to recycle gray water and use it for watering gardens, washing cars, and other things. The town could look at providing incentives for residents to recycle their gray water and require gray water recycling systems in new developments. The town could look at providing incentives for residents to install rainwater collection systems. We could also look at using constructed wetlands to filter and retain stormwater that could be used in drier summer months for irrigation. I also feel it would be prudent to conduct studies to gain a better understanding of Creston's groundwater. This could provide helpful information regarding where recharge areas for aquifers are located, provide guidance on how best to protect our groundwater. Perhaps it would be beneficial to explore regulating groundwater use to ensure this important and essential resource isn't exploited.
Thank you, Monique. Greg Banbury, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
So the town of Creston already has 2 really good wells in place and pretty good infrastructure, which is very key, which is very important. I worked for the town of Creston in the Public Works Department for a couple of years, and I monitored, because I was spending time in the areas where some of the monitoring equipment is in place. We never, even in the hottest of summers, we never had our supply drop below 70 to 75%, which the average was running at about 80 even in the middle of winter. So our water supply is quite good here. A couple of things that we could do to protect our water and look forward to the continuation of our water supply in the future is continual investment in the infrastructure. Would reduce leakage in our system. Something else that could be looked at is some backflow preventers that would be installed in commercial and industrial buildings. We could also work on backflow preventers and back siphonage issues in residential homes. Another one that I've considered would be a good thing to start would fixing the spray park equipment so it only runs while being used and it's not leaking continuously. That's quite a large waste of our fresh water supply. Or using an alternative supply for the spray park itself, which may be an option as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg. And Keith Baldwin, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
Thank you. The town staff and selected council representatives are expert, long-term participants in water supply management organizations, such as the Arrow Creek Water District. Over recent decades, storage and distribution infrastructure has been established to supply high-quality, safe, and secure drinking water with enviable long-term capacity to support residents, business, and industry. We also have a sewer network in reasonably good condition with a near-new hydrovac cleaning and monitoring truck, and an exceptional wastewater treatment plant. You've got to see that place, with qualified experts operating the systems at the highest government standards. Dedicated staff, efficient collaboration, and commitment to long-term investment is key. All of these interrelated systems are carefully managed with maintenance, upgrades, expansion, and renewal schedules strategically planned, with budget reserves established for many years into the future. Emergency preparedness is of critical importance, and backup processes exist to avoid disruption of services. The town's management team ensures that our water system crews are well equipped, well trained, and well supported. Long-term planning, reserve budgeting, and technical diligence will maximize overall stability of all water-related resources. On the consumer side, we will continue to encourage responsible, efficient water use, including regular maintenance of local water facilities, with ongoing seasonal watering restrictions and education on emerging water-saving practices. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keith. Amber Bartlett, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
As you all know, our water in Creston is amazing. I drink it right out of the tap. Our municipality has done a great job at maintaining our water and keeping up with the demands. After all, our water is what kokanee beer is, so what makes it so great. how do we keep it that way? What does water security look like for Creston? We need to find out all the different ways we can, or all the different ways we can, where we can find water, what our requirements are now and into the future. Find out our current infrastructure, if our current infrastructure can support our demands, and if not, determine what steps need to be taken to accomplish that. Put a training plan in place to train local residents to work and maintain our facilities, building up our job security here as well. And find out if we need to start looking into more resources and to provide water for the town of Creston in the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Amber. Denise, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
I was really actually unsure about this question, and so I did a little bit of research on the town website, and I don't know if anybody has checked out the Let's Talk Creston website, but it is super helpful, and I really like those flip charts. They're really cool. And I also found an article written September 11th, 2018 by Todd Westcott. But most of the stuff that I had found out, you've already learned about. So we have the Arrow Creek water system that the town of Creston and the Erickson community, that supplies the town of Creston and the Erickson community with drinking and irrigation water. The 2008 article stated that Arrow Creek system was upgraded and the upgrade project spanned over 11 years. So the infrastructure of our water system has been upgraded, and monies are continuing to be put aside to look after any other ongoing future improvements. The Town of Creston website was very encouraging. We are surrounded with an abundance of water and experience significant rainfall. However, the Town of Creston and the Regional District of the Central Kootenays, along with Columbia Basin Trust, have established a water conservation strategy. This program is aimed at reducing basin-wide water consumption by 20%. In order to achieve this goal, we must all do our part to lessen our water footprint. So that is what I found out, and I'm very encouraged that the town is moving forward in this area.
Thanks, Denise. So Norm Eisler, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
Well, as you've heard, I think we're in quite good shape in Creston as far as water security goes, but we're also a big valley, and so a lot of it is collaborating with other levels of government and the regional district, because I know there's been problems out in Canyon. And Canyon, as much as they're not voting in this election, they're part of Creston. And so we're all in it together, and I believe the regional district is coming up with a water security plan, and so that's something we need to be a part of. We've done some things like we need to keep protecting our watershed by developing and protecting wetlands. We've done that actually with the old reservoir up on Crawford Hill, and that's the new wetlands that are being developed up there. And those things will act as natural filters and will protect our water. So, but there has been a lot of long-term planning that's put us in pretty good shape right now. But our valley is growing, and there's more people coming, and so we have to make sure we stay on top of it so it stays that way. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Norm. Jim Alford, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
Thank you. I'm actually very happy to report that about a year and a half ago, we were able to say that the Arrow Creek system was, from an asset management point of view, self-sustaining. In other words, the money we're trying to put into reserves will keep that system in good shape for the coming years. And that's pretty amazing to do, because you have to remember that the filters are costing them over $300,000 a year, so it's pretty expensive. One of the issues that we have to do and have to recognize is the climate change and the effect of fuel loads on the forest. And the Community Forest has done a lot of work on Goat Mountain now with fuel mitigation, and we have to move into the Arrow Creek watershed to do some fuel mitigation work to prevent the the tragic fires that we can have with the fuel load that we have right now. And Community Forest just acquired a $1.2 million grant from the Forest Enhancement Society of BC. So they'll be able to look at some of those areas, and to me that's one of the big things we have to do for water security, is to reduce the fuel load within our water system as quickly as we can. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. So Richard Howes, what would you do? What steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
All right. Well, we all love water, don't we? So this is one of those big questions that I think we should consider, along with any of the other infrastructure upgrades we're doing, the bypass, affordable housing. Our community is growing, and I think that this is an opportunity to kind of link those things together. That's first of all. But second of all, this is an engineering problem, and it depends on how far down the rabbit hole we want to go with being protecting our water security and things like that. So first thing we need to do is define what that means. Does it mean that we don't run out of water ever? Does it mean we're okay with restrictions? Things like that. Next thing we should do is break it into smaller chunks so we can tackle these things. Like I said, we can go super far down the rabbit hole. We can convert toxic waste into drinkable water if we really wanted to. Or we could do permaculture concepts and things like that to actually reuse and capture and minimize the amount of water we use. So we have options. I'm happy to hear that our assets are in reasonably good condition. That would be the first thing I'd check, is some asset condition reports. I'd probably want to go see personally the functionality and effectiveness of these things to understand some usages, patterns, and I'd pick out anything that would jeopardize our security at a given time. I'm talking about usages. So I live on Arrow Creek, and that thing fluctuates almost a foot at peak season, so that's concerning to me. Right on. All right. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Richard. So Elizabeth Ireland, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
Well, I read that question and I went security, and I'm thinking cowboy hat, gun on hip. What are we talking here? So I kind of went on a bit of a bend on that one. It's a precious resource, and I recognize very well how we can take for granted how we've got it here. It's so plentiful. And with my holistic background, I look at things and I think, how does nature do it? That's the first thing I do, and I always like to work with nature the best way I can. It takes the load off of all the infrastructure and everything. And when it comes to security, I think we've got it. We've got to keep it clean. There is a multitude of holistic ways to do that, and I'm sure that we'd have to be working with provincial government and everything else along those lines. To me, it's not about what we will do, it's about what we can contribute to what works. And I think that when we look at housing and things like that, with the water capture, that you can do all sorts of things with the gutters and saving the water and stuff off the roof and all those different things that you can do. And I think there's lots of information out there. I just think that we have it so well here, and we've got all the natural resources that we really need to look at that and plan it well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So Scott Irwin, what steps would you take to protect the water security in the future?
Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I think the part of all these questions should be at what cost. I mean, we can keep pumping money into new filtration systems, but it's only going to cost us more money if we don't stop using so much water. I think the town has done an all right job at providing programs that people can use to aid with the overconsumption of water, but I think they're a little ill-promoted. There are a lot of ways that we can help prevent the overconsumption of water, and this would reduce strain on the water system from, I guess, the basis of the whole thing. Yeah, with the information that I have on this, I think reducing the overconsumption of water in the households is a good starting point to ensuring water security in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And Anthony Mondia, what steps would you take to preserve and protect water security in the future?
Yeah, so a lot of people said that we are doing pretty good right now with our water. It's one of the big three for expenditures and assets in the town. You got sewer, roads, water. Those are by far the largest three that we got to do. One thing that I'm going to comment though on is I'm always concerned about these larger shared capital expenditures, these projects that we do, like water, sewer, etc., because it requires a lot of capital up front. It kind of invests us in this system for many years to come in the future. For example, let's take Site C, for example. That's a 75-year commitment that we just entered into up there as a province. And so now we're locked into that for 75 years. A lot of things can happen in 75 years. With our own town infrastructure, we see in a lot of the cities, water pipes and such that are still wood getting repaired in big cities and stuff. It's been havoc on a lot of municipalities for their budgets. So I'm just want to comment that when we're looking at continuing supporting an existing system, that means that we're continuing to lock ourselves in there and might restrict our options in the future. Especially when it comes to water, there's a lot of unique things you can do. Money touched on some things. I had a phase where I built and lived in a tiny house for a little bit. I learned a lot about water and sewage then. And we have some provincial laws, if you want to research it, which don't differentiate gray from black, and that restricts a lot of innovative solutions. So I'd look at that stuff. Thanks.
Thank you. And Ursula Waslovich, what steps would you take to protect water security in the future?
Hello. I believe we have one of the cleanest and best water supplies in the world. We'll have to upgrade our existing pipelines that are 60 years old, that are corroded, of course. I mean, it happens. We all have to go through that process year after year. Other than that, the town has already a very sophisticated analysis system in place that has been updated this year. And I do believe that they have done a good job as far as that goes. I would like to see rainwater barrels for watering encouraged, or possibly if you buy one for your house and for your gardens, get a rebate of some sort. Maybe, again, I know low flush toilets have been in existence for a long time, but they should be promoted again, because there's a lot of older houses here in town. Being in a home renovation business for 10 years, man, there is a lot of old toilets out there. I also would like to see natural pesticides and herbicides for spraying orchards and gardens, and maybe even encourage not to get rid of those pesky, for those pesky weeds that we have in our yards, and just kind of go with the flow and let Mother Nature do its job. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ursula. Forgive me, Nora, did I ask you this question? I'm old and I forget things, so have I overlooked you, or did you answer this question? Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. Okay, on to question number 3. How can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston? And we're going to start with Norm Eisler.
I've been underhoused most of my time that I've lived in Creston, and I just finally got myself in a more stable housing situation. Affordable housing was the main driver of me running for council last time. And the one thing that we really need to do with affordable housing is have more people volunteering. There's a really dedicated group of volunteers in this community that have been working really hard on it for years and years, but they can't do it all. And so if you're looking for some boards to be part of and get involved, that's a good one. I'll go over some of the things we have done because I'm really proud of the things we've done in the last year. We've changed bylaws to allow detached rental suites before you could only have basement suites. So now people will be able to build laneway houses or like a detached garage with a apartment up top. We've created a 10-year tax incentive for all new rental housing. So I think that's a good incentive for people to start new builds. I know building costs are high right now, so there might not be an uptake right away, but we started an affordable housing committee with community members, and we've had a few meetings so far. We applied for a housing grant, and we'll soon have a quick start action plan together for the community to view, and that is my time.
Thanks, Norm. And now Denise. How can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
I attended the Affordable Housing and Development Committee meeting last week. I was very encouraged to see the number of committee members ranging from longtime individuals who have worked with nonprofits for years, and as Norm said, we need more volunteers. Area directors, realtors, council members, and concerned citizens were a part of this committee meeting. The town and regional district recognize that the lack of rentals is an issue. Less than 1% of rentals in the RDCK were vacant in 2019. This is a problem. The current council have passed multiple bylaws, as Norm had just said, encouraging the building of secondary suites. Revitalization tax exemption bylaw, for example. Affordable housing is an issue in our community, and I'm looking forward to jumping into the process that has already started and helping in any way I can.
Thank you, Denise. So Amber Bartlett, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
I would start by looking at other communities to see what is working and what is not. I would work with the provincial government and partner with developers to build more affordable homes. We could put bylaws in place that lay out the exact percentage of low, medium, and high income places that developers are required to build, putting a focus on more lower income and rentals. We could aid the developers by reviewing and removing some red tape within our own bylaws, promoting a more smooth and timely build. Have language that includes parking stalls, amenities, and amenities in our contracts. Make sure there are no shortcuts taken. We should have more densification near transit routes to ensure that we are not crowding our streets with vehicles and to effectively reduce the amount of pollution in our environment. Everyone deserves to have a roof over their heads and enough money left over to afford to feed their families. I would like to see the people who grew up here in this community afford to stay in the community that they call home. As your counselor, I will work really hard to see that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Keith Baldwin, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
Thank you. I am a member also of the recently established Affordable Housing Standing Committee, working with a wide range of local stakeholders and in active collaboration with consultants experienced in the Quick Start program, which is actually quite complicated. The committee looks at all types of ownership, including rentals, and all housing configurations. The regular involvement of the CAO ensures that the town is directly connected to the discussions and objectives. Again, collaboration and commitment is absolutely essential to keep this complex initiative moving forward, and the extreme challenges are obviously not unique to Creston. We are working to make creation of additional unit accommodation more attractive through local tax incentives, as Norm mentioned, for new and existing buildings, while ensuring that safety and livability standards are enforced. Many of the related long-term land acquisition and reconfiguration discussions that are being held at the council level are still confidential, but I can say that over the next couple of years, we will be making substantial progress in encouraging relevant rental developments focused on higher density and relative affordability. I'll skip the last sentence. This fall, through a long-term grant, we will be hiring a coordinator to dedicate a substantial portion of their time in tracking affordable housing opportunities and programs at all levels of government to ensure that we can facilitate timely decision-making and generate some tangible improvements
in the near future. Last sentence. There remain substantial challenges when implementation relies upon volunteer-driven associations able to mount shovel-ready projects that also need to have their ongoing commitment.
Thank you, Keith. So, Greg Banbury, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
So as a renter myself, forgot that again. As a renter myself, this is pretty important in our town, and I know I can speak on behalf of quite a few of our residents that are in the same situation. There's a lot of people that are continually looking for housing, rentals being a large part of that. Not everybody can afford to buy or is interested in owning a home at this time. So a couple of the things that I think that may be able to help address this situation. Although council or current council can't control or change the inflation rates or interest rates, we can look at other similar communities that have faced the same challenges with housing and have achieved success, and use that to model our own initiatives, building off other successful towns and communities. We can look at waiving a percentage or all of the certain property taxes, or as a strong incentive to develop rental units and multifamily dwellings. We could prioritize the permitting process and streamline that, as that seems to be a bit of a challenge for these types of structures, and as well reduce the cost of the permits potentially while working with the builders, owners, and other stakeholders to increase the rental inventory. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg. Monique Aries, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
There are a few ways I'm currently aware of in which town council can encourage the development of affordable housing. Council can look at amending the zoning bylaws to encourage higher density use. It would be helpful to include this in our official community plan. We can encourage an increase in rental housing availability through tax exemptions for people who choose to provide rental units at affordable rates. Others have mentioned the residential revitalization tax exemption bylaw. We can also look at considering the idea of capping rental prices. Affordable housing is a concern that requires provincial support, and town could advocate to the province, apply for grants, and liaison with developers, landowners, and funders. Another idea is that the town can acquire land and develop. For example, I'm thinking of the bunker. We could redevelop for affordable housing units. We can dedicate a portion of taxing to of our taxes to affordable housing, which we don't currently do. And we can consider opportunities for mixed-use development with business on the bottom and housing on the top. I'm happy to hear that this is such an important issue for everyone.
Thank you, Monique. And Arnold de Boon, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
You're actually asking the right guy here. I've been involved in affordable housing for 30 years, and I've been the chair of an affordable housing nonprofit society for 28 of those years. And I can tell you, we've made a difference in a lot of people's lives. We have other nonprofit housing societies here, and I think we provide homes for about 104 suites in this community. But one of the problems is there's been no significant department development here in about 13 years. So that's all stalled. So, of course, this is being addressed through our Affordable Housing and Development Committee, which I chair, by the way. And Keith has given you a good rundown of what we do there. We do have funding for a climate change and housing coordinator for 3 years, and a lot of that is funded by grants, so it's not a big cost to our taxpayers. He or she will be doing a lot of research on how to solve this problem. But through our committees, we have done things, the rezoning, tax incentives, we encourage rental suites and homes, tiny houses, development cost charge waivers. We also are landholders, and the town can actually provide land for the right projects. So we can help in that way. I've had personal discussions with the Minister of Housing recently and the CAO of BC Nonprofit Housing Association. They want to help. The province has grants. I know that there will be groups applying for those grants, and they will get strong letters of support from our town, and we will do whatever it takes to help.
Thank you, Arnold. Jim Elford, what can you say about how council can encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston? You need a mic.
Sorry, what's left to say? Everybody else stole all my thunder, but I'll just repeat a few things. In January, we passed the revitalization tax exemption to encourage rental housing, and they'll get tax-free for 10 to 15 years. And on March 9th, we held the Affordable Housing Discussion Group. 59 people showed up. And last spring, we passed bylaw 1944 to allow for laneway suites and accessory buildings. All things that council is strongly working on right now and will continue to work on. A lot of these programs are downloaded by the province or the federal government. Years ago, we had programs like MERBs to encourage rental housing, and these programs were canceled. So a concern I have is the issue of staff capability to do some of this stuff. It's encouraging that we're able to bring a new employee on, but it's a tax cost or a cost to taxpayers in staff time that is a concern to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Richard House, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
Alrighty then. So affordable housing, I'm really happy to hear that we're taking some action in addressing this. It's a pretty serious issue. I lived in a bus for 3 years going to school. We rented it, and that's because it cost $1,600 for a broom closet in Victoria. But moving to Creston here, reading some of the notes from the committees, a large percentage of our community can't even afford a $300,000 house. So it kind of makes me think, well, why do we have this problem? I can offer a couple of suggestions. We need to increase the income of our people here so they can afford these houses, and maybe encouraging our young folks to learn a skill, a trade, those kinds of things. So I know we have a good history of supporting income and things like that and employment services here. And then the second thing is I think there should be some sort of middle real estate market. Tiny homes, like everyone is saying, laneway houses and things like that, that's great. But, you know, who can afford this big, huge chunk of money all up front? I mean, I think we should probably have some steps that people can take in order to get to a real house, you know? Start small, keep investing yourself, investing your time, and eventually you can afford a reasonable sized house and stuff like that. So that's my take on it. Increase the skills and income and find a middle real estate market somehow. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Elizabeth Ireland, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
Thank you. Well, I think it's important to recognize that it's very difficult to share space, and for people to have the incentive to put up their suites and stuff like that, incentive is what will make that difference. And then we have a situation where the amount of property that's available for building and bylaws, so the rezoning would be definitely an avenue to look at, and the whether you grow out, whether you grow up, those are all issues that would have to be discussed. And when you want to look at what the town's overall sense of character is, what you want to do with that. And yeah, if you have to go and buy more land, then that, I mean, you're limited to what you can use and what you've got, so you have to prioritize. And just incentives and rezoning, this adaptation thing for, you know, tiny homes and stuff like that is just to get people under cover and protected for the winter, and figuring out different ways to live. We're running out of land and affordability for it. So everybody else has talked about so many other things, so I don't have much more to add to that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth. So Scott Irwin, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
Well, I think decreasing the cost of owning property would be a good start. Taxation and utility costs for property ownership have gone up at rates that aren't consistent with wage increases. Property owners are forced to increase rent to be able to afford to pay their bills and consequently leads to higher renting prices. Since wage increases haven't risen at the same rate taxes and utilities have, rent has gone up too much for lots of people to keep up with. To aid with this, I think government subsidized rent is one good way for the property owner to affordably and sustainably offer a lower rate to renters. The government would cover part of the rent, which would be based on the income of the tenants. This way, the property owner can still have a viable business and the tenant isn't having to struggle as much to afford a place to live. If I'm elected, this is a concern I'd really like to pursue and solve once I have all the information to support my ideas and, of course, help from all of my fellow candidates.
Thank you, Scott. Anthony Mondia.
Thank you.
How can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
I'm just going to give the bad news right out of the gate. It's going to get a lot worse in the next couple of years. We got the vineyards coming in now. This valley has been discovered. I expect property values to increase. I think everyone kind of knows it. This is a gem of a valley that's been discovered in BC and in the United States. So property values will probably go up. Unfortunately, it is a federal and provincial responsibility mainly. There's not a lot of tools at the disposal of municipal governments. And as Jim and them were saying, we get downloaded a lot of stuff and we have to live with the consequences. A lot of policies have been passed. Basically, the strategy is just like David Evie's talking about. You try and increase the supply until you drive down the price of rent as much as possible. Unfortunately, in BC, stands for bring cash, the issue is cash flow. And so if you take a look at it, I did my unit. I got off with renovations at about just under 120 a square foot. I lucked out. I picked the worst place in town, and I fixed it up myself. But most new builds are over 300 a square foot now. Building materials are increased in cost. Things are expensive. If you take a look at just some samples like I did of residential places, it's about a 3.5% property tax increase over the last 4 or 5 years, while inflation has been around 2.2. Property prices, as you've seen, have gone up 30, 20, 14% year over year. So the issue is a lot bigger, and it's usually debt fueled, and it's way out of our capacity. So what can town do? Town can just ring the bell like mad in the province and the federal and just try to get some money from them to help. That's what I think.
Thanks. So Ursula Washevich, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
What hasn't been said? For one thing, instead of supporting, encouraging landlords, I feel the town implemented a duplication of the BC Landlord Tenant Act, which I feel was waste of money. And it really, there's nothing that they can do, the bylaw officer can do to give people tickets if they're not doing something right, because the government themselves would step in and totally rectify that problem. Perhaps, on the other end, perhaps we can build more tiny homes without wheels, smaller permanent structures. Maybe we have to have a look at Europe, how they fared. Maybe we need to build up instead of like Calgary. Calgary expanded so far out that it's to a point where there's way too much land used. I hate to see that and see the fruit orchards disappearing. So I think we need to do our homework and get some helps from areas that have gone through this problem already. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ursula. And Nora Maddox, how can council encourage the development of affordable rental housing in Creston?
First, it's very evident that we need to increase the tax base, not the taxes. And the only way to do that is to have affordable housing, which we don't have right now. There are many options that we can handle. I've experienced people telling me that with the new bylaw, which was passed, they are selling their rental homes. And again, what does that, the impact that has? Less rentals. We have the town owns some property. We could have multiple dwellings, multiple family dwellings built on those. As Ursula said, we could have tiny homes. We already have one that's living, the people live in it, and they're just across the street from me. I don't think the house is any more than 450 square feet to 500 square feet. So why can't we do that? For single people, for seniors, there's no reason why we can't do it. We have to pay more attention to what's happening to our residents, start listening to what they say, start hearing them when they tell us they can't afford the rents. The taxes are too high. Every time the taxes on your property is raised, every time you get a bill on utilities, it goes to the tenant. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nora. Our next question is how should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community? And we're just going to go straight across the floor here. So we'll start with Arnold de Boon.
Thank you for that. I'll start with making an observation here. We have manageable debt for our Creston Emergency Services building. It was passed by a referendum and it's affordable for us. But the largest debt we'll ever leave to future generations is if we do nothing to stop climate change. That is very important to all of us. So one of the things we've done, we passed a motion recently, about a year ago I think, for the town to use 100% renewable energy by 2050. Now that's a long way off, and that says, well, maybe we can just sit down and wait for that to happen, but we can't. We'll be hiring a climate change coordinator to help us. It's funded mostly by grants, and the person will do some research, apply for federal and other grants to help us. We'll be looking for programs such as energy-efficient retrofits, more infrastructure for electric vehicles, bike parking, walking trails. Every little bit helps. One of the other things that we've done, and it's a simple thing, hot in-place paving rather than new asphalt. When you saw the paving last year, it was hot in-place paving. So we're recycling the paving rather than going to mine more asphalt. We are encouraging the use of e-bikes. We're managing our waste. Our curbside yard waste pickup is something that we basically have to do. It extends the life of our landfill, and we will try to go to solar energy and encourage heat pumps. Thank you, Rita. That's probably all I have time for.
Thanks very much, Arnold. Monique, you're up. So should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
Yes, I think Creston should prioritize transitioning to becoming a net zero community. We are a community that relies on a stable climate. For example, our agriculture, our forestry, and our tourism. Our food security, water security, and economy are all tied to a healthy environment. It's important to note that businesses and people will be attracted to investing in a community that is forward-thinking on this issue. That being said, we are already feeling the effects of climate change, such as our summers filled with smoke, our dry forests, our wildfires close by, and shortages. We don't want to end up in the same situation as Lytton. So along with moving to a net zero community, we need to think about adaptation and mitigation, which includes building climate change resiliency into our future urban design. Importantly, we need to look at ways to reduce our carbon emissions in the first place. This means looking at our transportation systems and our buildings, which is the biggest source of carbon emissions.
Thank you very much, Monique. Greg Banbury. Should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
That's a good question. Personally, I don't feel that transitioning to a net zero community at this time is a sustainable goal, at least not for Creston. with current inflation at a 40-year high and increases in our interest rates continuing, I feel that this would create unnecessary and potentially crippling burdens for the taxpayers in Creston. Current council and administration had the perfect opportunity to begin that transition towards a net zero community with the new fire hall, with options like geothermal or solar, as Mr. DeBoon had mentioned, and a well-insulated building. But instead they chose inefficient energy options like the massive heating and cooling system that was installed on the roof of the new fire hall building, new emergency services building. Along with that, in that building, there's a lot of large windows. In a building that size, probably not the most energy efficient options to go with. Some of the other goals I think that have been set are well within our reach, but I don't feel that transitioning to a net zero community at this time is a good idea for Creston. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg. Keith Baldwin, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
Absolutely. This fall, through a long-term grant program, we will be hiring a coordinator to dedicate a substantial portion of their time pursuing and promoting implementation of climate change, adaptation, and resilience opportunities at the civic level. All of us on council and in the town administration believe passionately in striving for carbon neutrality, and many of us ensure that we lead by example. Personally, I walk or cycle wherever possible, both commuting and for recreation, and Creston is a very compact community to do that in. I have bicycles for all occasions year-round. Realistically, to reach the global goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 100% relative to 2018 levels by 2050, clearly, progressive actions must be undertaken promptly if we are to avoid traumatic and abrupt crises in our lives, locally and beyond. Collaborating actively with RDCK and Columbia Basin Trust related initiatives will be a given. With the help of our new Climate Action Coordinator, I expect that we will be regularly applying a climate effects filter to our various decision-making processes while encouraging adoption through incentives and positive compliance programs. We're all in this together, near and far. By acting decisively and conscientiously with kindness and collaboration, we will help preserve quality of life for the next generation. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Amber Bartlett, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
As there are many issues on the table, I'm not sure if prioritizing one over the other is the most respectful way of handling things. However, here is how I picture our town reaching our net zero objective. Creston already has a plan in place, but due to increased population and other limiting factors, we were not able to completely reach those goals. Let's examine those goals and re-implement a revised plan. As a local government, we could also lobby with the provincial and federal government to push manufacturers to build appliances that last 25 years and steer away from this throwaway culture we've become. Companies should also be using recyclable products for packaging so that we can do our part and recycle and reuse materials. Let's also look at options to build our own recycling plant, lead by example, and create sustainable jobs within our community at the same time. A similar idea would be looking at ways to bring in or start up repair companies based out of Creston that supply parts and maintain appliances, again providing jobs and continuing a full circle of reusables. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We should be looking at what is already being done by other municipalities, determine the results that actually work, and model them. Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. Denise Dumas, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
Yes, just simply because it is legislated by the BC government. And also, BC signed a joint action agreement with Washington, Oregon, California back in 2008. The town of Creston is on the road of achieving, are working to be on the road of achieving renewable energy by 2050. Funds have been set aside in the budget for this legislation since 2009. Now, I will have to admit, all that information came from my father, Ron Toyota. I didn't do any research on that one. I believe it is very important to steward our resources well, look after our environment for our families now and into the future. However, if people's basic livelihoods are legitimately compromised from these decisions, then I will push back a little bit.
Thank you, Denise. Norm Eisler, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
Yes, absolutely. We signed on to in 2021 to the West Kootenays 100% renewable energy plan, and I think that was a great move. It was just before I joined council, but we have some great climate change thinkers in town, and I want to connect more and more with them. I'm not an expert on this issue, but I'm a good listener. Staff is putting together a step-by-step plan for the town to achieve these things, and that will be coming out, I'm not exactly sure when, but fairly soon, so the public can look at it. I think we just have to think of it locally, but we have to think of it provincially and as a nation and globally, and this is where we can actually start to make a difference. We're going to have to build some climate change resiliency. I think, I'm sure a lot of you don't remember that, a lot of you remember that we didn't used to have a fire season in BC. That's our 5th season now, and the time is now. There's not any more time to wait. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Norm. Jim Alford, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
I would get lynched if I said no. Yes, we should, and we're trying. And in 2021, as they've mentioned, we signed the West Kootenay Energy Renewable Package. Council's been trying in many ways. We looked at putting solar panels on the roof of Town Hall. The way the building's constructed, it's impossible to do. So that, but we already looked at that. We looked at geothermal heating for the new Creston Emergency Services building, drilled very deep holes, and found out it was just way too expensive for the town to handle. But we have had some accomplishments. Our multimodal plan has a big section on bike lanes, which will be discussed in our upcoming budget. We've made some ability for staff to purchase electric bikes to get some things off the roads. And we've set up those signs for idle-free zones, small bites that are affordable for our town. I know as well the Community Forest Group is working hard at finding a way to use the slash piles that are available right now. We're having a heck of a time finding a way to get rid of that, though. But small bites that are affordable is what we need to do.
Thanks, Jim. Richard Howes, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
I'd like to reframe the question slightly because that calculation changes from time to time. I really support the idea of having less impact on our planet and living more symbiotically within it. I've quite a bit of experience pushing energy and emission reduction programs throughout our provincial government building infrastructure, and it's gone quite well. I don't see any reason we can't continue to do things like that here. But this is a big problem that spans across all of our services, all the things council touches. So we have to consider this holistically. So we've heard a lot about energy and things like that. What about our waste? What about our septic? There's opportunities there that are just waiting for us to take advantage of. In terms of renewables, I'd like to kind of second guess that for a second because our province is one of the biggest producers of hydroelectric electricity with low carbon impact. So we're going to have to balance our resources a little bit to figure out what we have and what can be the biggest bang for our buck. What can we actually do to drive the biggest impact and take advantage of those opportunities through infrastructure upgrades and things like that. So full-heartedly support the environment and our commitment for our future generations, and that's how I'd go about it.
Thanks very much, Richard. Elizabeth Ireland, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
I'm very much in agreement with Richard. I think the question is polarizing in some ways, and we need to get back to where we can discuss rationally all the things that are in front of us and from all the different sources of information. I don't think anyone in their right mind would be against any kind of environmental support, absolutely. I had done some research on this, and I was listening to a study from the Copenhagen, what's it called, the Copenhagen Conservative Society, I think it was. This is made up of 27 world climate economists, and 3 of them were Nobel laureates. And the study that they did showed that the world's CO2 emissions from the pandemic lockdowns showed a net over 75, for the next 75 years, showed a net drop in the temperature 1/500th of 1 degree. So I have to question logically, why the panic? We need to talk with people from all different study groups, and like Richard said, absolutely support a holistic view and try to balance the resources, and that's where I sit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Scott Irwin, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
Yes, I do. I think becoming a net zero community is an amazing goal to strive towards, and I absolutely support it. However, I think going at it too hastily, trying to get it done too quickly, is a really bad idea. Hurts people's pockets a lot, and I don't think the individual should be forced to solve this problem, as it's a far bigger issue than just them. On the individual level, there are issues that their taxes could be used to solve that might be more pertinent to their quality of life at this time. Yeah, I don't think the current council has done a very good job at reaching this goal. While the fire hall, like people were saying earlier, or Greg was saying earlier, they've already applied for grants to retrofit that to comply with their requirements for the net zero goal by 2050. So yeah, becoming net zero is a huge undertaking, and I think it's an amazing thing to strive towards for the future. I do think it should be prioritized to an extent. How exactly we will get that done, I'm not going to make any promises on that. I think it's such a massive undertaking that it would be somewhat naive for me to think that I have the answers for it. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Anthony Mondia.
Thank you very much. Climate change is real. Just going to say that. It's good to have a brother-in-law who's an atmospheric scientist, physicist, and has walked me through a lot of the research. So I'm totally aware that climate change is real, and we don't really contribute a heck of a lot here in Creston. A lot of it's coming from elsewhere, so we do have to take a look at when we make large expenditures, we have to do a climate assessment, how that's going to be impacted in the future, 25, 30 years, especially if these capital expenditures are going to last that long. We have to adjust our models to include climate change. The thing I do want to talk about a bit here is what can council do should we try to become net zero? Take a look at the cost equation here. Living green actually in a lot of cases creates improved affordability for life in the community. I know this firsthand, and then I've read several economic research reports that going net zero improves affordability. A lot of these arguments are it's going to be too costly. Well, the funny thing is they're not taking a look at the whole life of the project, the whole life of the asset, and the cost benefits. It might be upfront costly, but you're going to get that back in operational savings over time. The technology is already here. That's the scary part. A lot of people don't realize, and they argue about the technology. It's here. And so I would encourage us to look at projects like that. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Ursula Waslovich, should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
That's it's a big subject. I feel, in my opinion, we should approach this issue very carefully. We don't need any more hardships on our citizens. We're already recycling glass, metal, cardboard, and many of us have a compost area for our food waste. We need to put pressure on our government to go after the large manufacturers instead, to reduce excessive packaging that as a taxpayer has to pay to dispose of. We know what it's like at Christmas time. Our garbage doubles. We also need to address the fast food industry to use simpler and more recyclable material. My thoughts are also we should, to improve our emissions and our air, Creston air, we should again encourage people to start using natural pesticides and herbicides. That would make a huge difference. I know we have a lot of orchards here, and I think that's a real problem when they start spraying. I mean, you can hear them at nighttime and how often they spray, a lot of times every other day. Maybe we can talk to them to maybe get an expert in to have a look at it so it can be minimized for our air quality as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. Nora Maddox. Should council prioritize transitioning Creston to becoming a net zero community?
My impression is we have to go slow. Canada only produces 6% of the world's carbon emissions. And I'm really sick and tired. I'm just going to address one thing because it's a big subject. I'm sick and tired of the taxpayers always being blamed for producing so much garbage and having to pay through their property taxes and fees for the disposal of the same. Why are organizations like the UBCM and the provincial government and provincial agencies and the federal agencies, why are they not going after the manufacturers who are packaging and causing all of this disposal? We aren't packaging, they are, but the government just refuses to go after the perpetrators, and we end up paying the price. My approach would be to protect the residents, to fight for them, to get organization, get us together, and to put pressure on the government to go after the big manufacturers. All you have to do is look at Christmas. How many bags of disposable wrappings do you have to get rid of? And you have to pay for that. You're paying it every day in your taxes, every year, and it keeps going up and up. I could talk for a long time on this subject because I really believe the taxpayers of this province and our town are paying for everything.
So that leads us nicely into our next question, and I'm going to ask you, Nora, to address this question first. Are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? What services would you cut or add as a result of this?
First of all, I wouldn't cut any services. And no, I don't want to increase taxes. But because I'm not privy to what the situation is as far as our financial status is for the town, it's very difficult for me to address that question. My own personal approach, and everyone knows or should know, I have been fighting for the people in this town, the seniors, the young families, to keep our taxes down. There is no reason why our taxes should be going up when we're spending and overspending our budget. We, as homeowners, can't go anywhere to get funding for more groceries. We have to stay within a budget. I would like to know why our mayor and town council are not staying within a budget so that we can afford to look after our everyday things. You take a look at our roads, they look like patchwork quilts. Dab here, a dab there, in this hole and that hole. That's just one example. What about our infrastructure regarding our sewer and water? Some of those pipes are 60, 70 years old. Has there been any plan ever? No. We take money from our reserve sewer and water to pay for a fire hall that's now reaching $9 million and more. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Ursula Waslovich, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, we have been paying some hefty taxes. My taxes on one of the property has gone up by 34%, and that's pretty hard to take, especially when that property is rented out. So I feel we cannot keep going like this. We need to stay in a budget. If I would have run my company the way our governments are run, I would have, well, I would be renting, put it this way. Unfortunately, as far as our financial records, our for the town of Creston, I am unable to comment on those because I have never seen them. And like Nora said, we are not, they're not ready available. So that's all I can comment.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Anthony Mondia, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Probably shouldn't have the accountant go after you guys. So financial information is publicly available in detail on the website, online for every town in the province of BC. If you pop up the financials, you will see that the town for the last 4 years consecutively has spent below budget, sometimes more than $1 million below budget. It's available. Sewer, water, and roads, they're accounted for. If you see the financials, it'll show the assets, and they're being replenished and maintained according to the schedule that they depreciate, and that's available publicly for anybody to look at online. It's on the second to last page of the financial statements of 2021. If you want to look up the number, I forget it, but I remember everything else. Property taxes, I've looked at all the mill rates. 34%, if you're talking about year over year, that's factually incorrect. It has not gone up 34% year over year. Well, then I'd be happy to look at it and go through that with you. But if you look at the mill rates, that's not how much they've increased. So with that said, I believe that the town's financial position is good. It's sound. I believe that it's in a good position. I would maintain, however, the tax rates. One thing I want to look at is there's over 12,000 inquiries per year going to the town, and I'd like to know what those inquiries are about, and I think we have to realign and focus on those. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Scott Irwin, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, I'd be hesitant to decrease property taxes right away until we decide, well, figure out why the quality of life of the citizens of Creston hasn't gone up at the same rate taxes are. I think that's a big thing for me that I see on the forefront, I guess. yeah, I think the amount that people are paying in taxes isn't congruent with their quality of life, and I think we've been promised some things with our tax dollars that haven't come to fruition. I saw on the reasons that the property tax had gone up for 2022, part of that was that they were going to work on fixing affordable housing, and I think that's only gotten worse since then. That's one thing that that I saw that kind of troubled me, as well as, yeah, well, it went up almost 4% in 1 year, so, and I didn't see much of a quality of life interest for the increase for the people of Creston. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I hope you all go out and vote, and when you do go out and vote, I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Elizabeth Ireland, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, it was interesting timing for this question. Yesterday in the House of Commons, there was a vote on the floor for Mr. Polyev put out a House call to the government to commit to no to taxes on gas, groceries, home heating, and paychecks and carbon tax. And they were voted down. They were 205 voted to put the taxes up, and that's what's going to be coming down the pipe. So when we talk about putting up the taxes for our town, I think we have to look at all the people that are just struggling to keep food on the table and gas in the car, and how they prioritize whichever, almost every move that they make throughout a month. So due diligence on where the money goes and how it's spent, and I honestly can't see that I would be in any way in favor of increasing taxes at this time. I think it's just too unstable.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Richard House, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? What services would you cut or add as a result of this?
I think we need to level set as a community. I've been sifting through the vast amount of data out there, provincially, municipally. I'd also like to follow up with you, Anthony. Sounds like you have a good handle on financial figures. But like I said, I help deliver services to our provincial government, and quantifying those services is extremely important as a consumer or a user. So as a citizen, I would expect to have a very distinct list of all the services I have and what I'm paying for. I understand we already have this data. It's publicly available. I just don't think it's easily consumed by the average person to understand. So that's what I would do. I don't want to increase, decrease. I'd maintain and figure out what the situation is first.
Thank you, Richard. Jim Elford, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
As a taxpayer, I'm definitely in favor of decreasing taxes. I don't want to pay any more than I have to, but the reality is we live in a society that taxes are partly in the demand that the public places on local government. When we voted for the rec center, my taxes went up $700. But that's, the community voted to have that facility. I have no problem with the facility, and I'm prepared to pay my taxes for that. Anyone who says they're going to reduce taxes should be required to show you how they're going to do that. We have issues coming up. Fuel prices have risen dramatically. Labor negotiations are coming on. So, you know, it makes it pretty difficult to say that we're going to hold the line or decrease taxes at all. I know that in the 8 years that I've been on council, we have been fiscally prudent constantly and will continue to do that. Anybody who questions our taxation, we are 77th of 160 other municipalities, and we're the 19th lowest in terms of property taxes and utilities. And those documents are also available on the BC government website, municipal tax rates and tax burden. So I encourage anyone to look there for that information. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Norm Eisler, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, citizen surveys in Creston have consistently shown that people are happy with the service level on the most part. So certainly not a lot of people saying they want to cut services. If anything, increase services. So sitting through this last budget process, it was like a 3-day budget process, line by line. I was so impressed with how much thought goes into our finances in this town, like line by line item, and everything is accounted for. And the planning for the future, I was really impressed with. We've got town staff that are dedicated and knowledgeable, and we're lucky to have them. You know, I think part of being in local government is always looking for efficiencies that we can find, and so when we can find those, we can reduce. We're based mostly on property taxes in this town, unless we could bring in a large industry, but then you want it to be a green industry, right? We don't want a big polluting industry to come into town. And so we are going to be relying on property taxes. And I thought the way it was done this year was really professional. And the raise in property taxes this year was, half of it was the RCMP raises, and that was beyond our control. So yeah, that's my time.
Thank you, Norm. Denise Stumas, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, I'm with Jim. I would prefer maintaining or decreasing as I pay property taxes.
Please speak right into your mic, Denise.
I am with Jim that I would like to maintain or decrease property taxes as I pay for them. And I just want to say that to continue to get the services that we need in our town, I am super impressed by the town staff and how they secure the government grants. The town staff and the RDCK staff have done an outstanding job. And so I'm really excited to be working with a council, and I know I have a lot to learn, and I'm willing to put that work in. So I thank you for all being here tonight.
Thank you, Denise. Amber Bartlett, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
It is always unhealthy for a community to start cutting services. And I wouldn't say I'm in favor of increasing or decreasing property taxes. I would have a look at the budget to see where the money is being spent currently and correctively allocate the funds based on the genuine needs of the community. What looks good on paper today may have devastating effects in the future. For example, cutting the budget on water, sewer, road maintenance. A small pothole today can worsen over time and cost more down the road. We need to encourage bigger industry growth within the town, bring in more tax revenue, and offset what needs to be raised by our households. We should discuss bylaws for solar panels to be included in any new builds, dramatically saving residents money in energy expenses and potentially lessening the burden of taxes with an added bonus of green energy. I would like to achieve a balance in our community where taxpayers are content with their taxes because they can see the benefits of their hard-earned money at work. I'd like to say, please make sure to save one spot for Amber Bartlett, your future town councillor, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Amber. Keith Baldwin, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
We have 5-year plans in place now. The money
the spending is already accounted for. What isn't accounted for, it is accounted for, but we're having extraordinary circumstances with inflation that didn't exist 2 years ago. Our CFO, our financial officer, Stefan Klassen, is way, way better than we ever deserve in this little community. He's brilliant. You should have a parade for him. He is planning and protecting the taxpayers so far into the future. It's brilliant. But in the meantime, what he's battling with is a lot of increases right in front of us. And salaries and costs like that are imminent. Operating costs have jumped dramatically. Again, the best they can forecast is patterns that exist. So my point would be that we need to maintain subject to the impacts of inflation. It's real. We can't do anything else about it. We have to pay the price that the price is. I would say that the current level of taxation is reasonably sufficient to safeguard the budget for the community's long-term strategic plans, currently in that 5-year plan. And the asset management that Stefan has brought in since he's arrived here he's basically protecting us from surprises in the future. So stay the course.
Thank you very much, Keith. And now, Greg, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Well, I mean, I'd be kind of foolish to say that I would be in favor of increasing property taxes. And of course, I would love to see a decrease in taxes, but that's not always the way to make things work either. It's a pretty complex issue, and I think that we could all agree we'd like to see a reduction in our taxes. I'd like to see a reduction in taxes across the board in every one of the taxes that I pay. But that just doesn't generally happen. That's not how things are done to ensure that the services are delivered correctly and properly. So, I mean, there's a couple of things that I think that we could look at to make up for a reduction, if there is a reduction in overall income. It could be exploring potential cutting of some of the management and administration positions. As I mentioned earlier in some of my comments, I worked for the Town of Creston, and I have seen some mismanagement and some overspending that definitely could be reined in to save the taxpayers a bunch of money. There's a bunch of projects that I worked on that had to be done more than once. They had to dig things up and redo them over again because they were done incorrectly as it filtered down through the administration. So things like that cost the taxpayers a lot of extra money that they are definitely not aware of, I think would help. There's a couple other options that could be explored as well. A friend of mine and I were just speaking about this today, as a matter of fact. And the City of Calgary has installed infrastructure at one of their wastewater facilities to capture the methane and reuse that methane to create electricity with it. Something I think that we could use here. Thank you for your time. Every vote counts.
Monique Harris, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
So I'm not oblivious to the burden that town's taxes place on families. This was the first year that my partner and I paid property taxes, which were almost $2,000 after receiving the homeowner's grant. We had just purchased a home and I was on maternity leave. So we had to scramble to get that money together to pay our taxes on time. Therefore, if elected as councillor, I can promise I will always try to find ways to be cost effective. It's important to examine where all costs and expenses are going. I understand inflation and costs are going up, and I'm not wanting to cut services and quality of life for Creston residents. Investing responsibly will create a more resilient future local economy. For example, the building of Market Park is an investment, but will ultimately put more money in the hands of local and small businesses. As Norm said, I think it's about finding ways to be efficient with our current tax dollars.
Thank you, Monique. And Arnold DeBoon, are you in favor of maintaining, increasing, or decreasing property taxes? And what services would you cut or add as a result of this?
Okay, so I think you've heard the common theme here is most people don't want to cut any services, and I don't either. And when you walked into the building today, my lovely wife, my wonderful son, and two of our friends handed out a printout here, and it's in regards to taxes and spending in Creston, And I did a little bit of comparative research on communities. I urge you to read this because this is all verifiable information if you go online, so I'm not making this up. It is the accurate information about how we compare to other communities in the Kootenays, and we do very well. The other misconception that people have is that, well, now that the emergency services building is finished, your taxes are going to skyrocket. Actually, we've been paying the debt service for our emergency services building for 3 years already. Our financial officer has incorporated into our taxes already. So you're not going to see skyrocketing taxes to pay for our emergency services building. You have to remember that municipal tax is only 55% of your tax bill. The other is set by the province, regional district, hospital district, and a few other small amounts. So we only have control over 55% of what you get for taxes. And the citizen satisfaction surveys, which are statistically valid, show that people are happy with the services we provide. So if you just take a look at all that information, it's publicly available. No one comes to our 5-year financial plan. So we are transparent, but nobody goes. We hear the crickets chirp.
Thank you, Arnold. We're now at the place where all our questions have been answered, but because we have some time left before 9 o'clock, I'd like to give all the candidates an opportunity to say something in summation as to how they feel about what they've heard today, what they want you to know, any kind of misinformation they think that should be corrected, any new information they may want to give out, anything that they feel we haven't had an opportunity to address this evening. And so I'm going to start with Nora Maddox. We'll do ladies first. It's your opportunity to sum up and say whatever you like. You've got 2 minutes.
It's not enough, but anyway, I just want everyone here to know and everyone in Creston to know that I'm on your side. I'm on the taxpayer side. I'm on the resident side. I want the doors of our town hall opened. I want total communication open between every councillor and the mayor and even the staff. We want you to come and you tell us what you want us to do. We don't tell you. Now, yes, the provincial government gives the mayor and the council that authority. I won't go into the details, but if anybody wants to know, I can show you the act. But I feel anyone who takes that approach is being dictatorial. They're not considering the residents of the town. We've got to get our financial burden off our shoulders. And we're not going to get it off our shoulders if we keep filling it up with more. We've got to stop it. We've got to put some restraint. We have no idea what's happening in the world. What's going to happen? How much food are we even going to have to eat? How are we going to help one another if we're all broke? And we at a council level have the authority, and if we have the passion for our people and the drive, we can start unity within our community, back to helping one another instead of division. We need unity. We need everyone. And one of the reasons that I'm running for council is because I feel that the people of this town deserve better. You deserve to be treated better. You deserve to have a say in everything. No more closed door meetings. No more impediments so that you can talk to those that can help you. Thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nora. Ursula, would you like to sum up?
Sure. What I'd like to say is, just as Nora, we came out of retirement to help our community. These are getting to be really, really tough times where a lot of people can't pay their food bills, their gas bills, their heating, their mortgages, and so on. We're heading for quite a time. It'll be exciting, but it'll be challenging as well. And the reason I'm here and I'm running for council is I'd like to make a difference. I'd like to use what I have in assets, as in what I've learned over my 51 years of working life. I'd like to contribute. I'd like to live here for the rest of my life because this is the most beautiful community I've ever lived in. I'd like to see our people united and caring, and people help each other all over again. It's a small town. It's not a big city. It can still happen. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ursula. Anthony, what would you like to say?
Kind of disappointed tonight because I thought there would be more fireworks and debate and yelling and things like that, but maybe that just shows that you got a lot of sensible people up here, and it's going to be a tough decision for y'all to make.
There's still time.
Pardon me? Oh, there's still time, is there? What's the next question? Let's go. No, but this is the reason I chose Creston. I mean, when I came here, you should have seen the lineup of people just coming and helping me, and I think half the town was my foreman on that fence. But it will be done. It will be built. I promise you all that it will be back. And jokes aside, though, I think it can bring a lot to this town. This is one way to do it. If it doesn't work out, there's other ways. I know that. And it's a good town here. And I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to apply my knowledge, my skills the best way I can. We don't control a heck of a lot. We're kind of given instruction from the province, and the feds dictate a lot. But we can sure as hell raise some hell and get our money and get it here, because it's going to go somewhere else if we don't do it. So that's kind of what I'm here for. Responsible growth doesn't mean shying away from spending, but it does mean making sure that we have a lot of cost sharing, a lot of other government agencies coming to the table, make sure that if we do that highway, the province and the feds are going to pony up money. I know they can. I know they will. And we got to come together. I think Keith said it. There's that thing going around town to get feedback around the highway. All that we're missing is a lot of citizens and residents raising some stink, and then it will get done. So I think we need to encourage that type of activity in town. I think that that's something that I will help with as much as I can. If you want, go on my website, sign up for my newsletter. I'm trying to make videos to help people understand a bit more of who's responsible for what, and I'm just going to work my butt off like I always do. Thank you.
Thanks very much. You're up, Scott.
First off, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak in front of all you, even though it makes me extremely nervous. Yeah, I think that with my values, I can bring a lot to the council. I'm always trying to learn. I've learned a lot just being up here, listening to my fellow candidates. Yeah, I'm going to do the best that I can. I'll do all the research. I'll do all the work. I'll try and figure out what's best for you all and your tax dollars. I just want to urge everyone to go out and vote. If you agree with the things that I'm saying, please give me a vote. I would really appreciate it. I really hope that I can make Creston a better place, and I hope that lots of people will support me on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Elizabeth.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's definitely time for conversation and coming together, absolutely. I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time. I don't know if that really showed in some of my answers tonight. And I think it's healthy to have debate and discussion. And I think we need to slow down. I think we need to get rid of the whole panic mindset that we've been in and look at the data and the facts from all over the world. The solutions are out there. Adaptation is obviously going to have to be what we're going to be able to, what we're going to need to do in the future, because it's so unstable and we don't know exactly what's coming. The best predictors, from what I've understood, is that investment in research and development will be our best bet to get the solutions for our climate problems, and that that because of what that research showed and stuff like that, I think it tells us that we do have to just sit back and really start listening. We've been sort of in a locked up mind about what we think and the divisiveness and stuff, and we've got to stop that. We've got to go forward, and we've got to look after our community, look after each other first and foremost. I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Please go out and vote. Thank you.
Richard, you're up.
Hey, everybody. Well, I'd first like to give a great big thanks to the councillors and the mayor leaving. This is the first time that I'd be walking into a good situation. It's not a complete gong show. So I feel like we have a really solid base to start from, and whoever you elect will really shine because they've built this base for us. If you're electing me, you can expect me to do my homework. I might even argue with myself because I like to be thorough. And, you know, a lot of the things I hear from people is they want to understand what they're paying for, what the things are going on in council. I think we can do a better job of being accountable to you. I think social media is probably a really good avenue for that. It reaches a lot of people really quickly. And I think that this group here can actually work really well together. So regardless of your choice, I think you're going to be in good hands. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Richard. Jim, your comments.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. It's good to see a crowd. I started out by saying how proud I was of the projects that this town has completed in the last 8 years that I've been on council, and I'd still like to repeat how proud I am of that. I'm also very honored to have worked with some of the best staff that I've ever met. Creston is lucky to have some of the staff that we have are just rockets above everything else. And I think I'd like to take this moment to publicly express my thanks to Ron Toyota for 14 years of dedication as the mayor of this community, selfless dedication, and I think I'd like to ask everybody to give Ron a round of applause and thank you.
Thanks. Norm, you're up.
I want to thank all the candidates that are here tonight and everyone in the crowd. I think it's the one thing I really realize that even if we have different opinions up here, I do believe that everyone's here because they love Creston, even if we don't agree. We may have different ideas of what's good for it and how to go about it, but I do believe that people aren't running for their ego or anything like that. I do believe it's for love of the town. It's been a real honor the last year to be on council, and I'm really hoping I can continue forward for the next 4 years and be part of the solutions.
Thank you, Norm. Denise.
I just want to thank everyone for coming again, and once again, thank you, Creston Chamber of Commerce, Creston Valley Tourism Society, Creston Employment Services. Thank you for putting on this forum. I love what Norm just said. It is why I'm running. I love this town, and I'm excited to serve. I do have a unique opportunity to be mentored by my father, who has been mayor for the last 14 years. I know I have a lot to learn. It's a big leap from contract painter to councillor. If you vote for me, I guarantee you I will work hard. And as I want to see continued positive growth in our valley.
Thank you, Denise. Amber.
I'd like to thank everybody as well for coming out. It's nice to see so many faces. I will be handing out leaflets just outside the building in the parking lot if you want to come and chat. That would be great. And thanks again for your time. I am Amber Bartlett.
Thank you. Keith.
You guys are amazing. I get this feeling every time I go into council, working with the most amazing people. It's been an incredible year. We get so much more than, I was going to say that we deserve, that we don't appreciate it enough. We need to support our team, whoever that is that comes forward. realize they're dedicated. They're there to get the job done, and this is not, I don't mean to understress this, it is not an easy job. You have to do your homework. You have to be on top of this. Thousands of pages of material to read, all kinds of decisions that could go either way. But ultimately, our staff, they know what they're doing. They give us the chance to evaluate all of the options. They make a recommendation. But we as councillors aren't kind of there to drive this whole process. We're there to be the voice of reason, the reality check, the esprit de corps. It's so much fun, but responsibility. If I were to end with one thing, is I believe that our core considerations, at least for me, if I had to boil it down, because I didn't say this before, must be our community's long-term health and safety, happiness, and prosperity. And I would, if you add all those things up, that's really what we're there for. We're the test to make sure that we're moving forward on that. So support your local council and celebrate what they do together with the staff, because it is freaking amazing.
And now to Greg Banbury.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you to the fellow candidates up here. Thank you to the residents of Creston. I'd like to echo the sentiments of a couple of the other candidates that I don't think anybody's up here for their ego. I think everybody that's here really loves Creston and wants to work their ass off for this community. I know I sure do. So I hope everybody gets out and votes October 15th. Get out there, do your part. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
And now for Monique.
I think I just want to reiterate that I bring a curiosity to each issue we will work through, and I will ask thorough questions. And as I said, I work collaboratively with a team, and I think that's really important. Thank you for everyone for putting on this event, and thank you for all the candidates who have come. I've really enjoyed listening to everyone, and I appreciate your dedication to this community. Please tell your friends and family to vote. It's really important to take part in your municipal governance.
Thanks, Monique. Arnold, last words to you.
Well, thank you for giving me this next 2 hours. That's going to be excellent. Thank you all for listening. I know there was a lot of answers here, and I wanted to just state my appreciation for the civility that we had here, because I strongly advocate civility in social media and everything, because when you're in public office, in either municipal or provincial or federal, you take a lot of abuse. And I really want to encourage this community to get away from that, to support each other. And having said that, I support our town staff 100%, and I think that they have done a great job for us. And I hope that we can keep them all, because I know other communities are pulling at them. So, and I wanted to say thank you to Ron Toyota. I know you're the most relaxed person in this room today. And I wanted to say that the reason I'm running is because I want families to return to Creston. Wendy and I are among the lucky ones. Our son returned. He married a Creston girl. They returned. They're teachers in the valley. A lot of people here are seniors and they have family. Pull your family back. There are trades here. There are professional jobs here. Tell them to come back. Be part of your family and be part of our community. And we as council, we will do our best to make that happen, because we care for you, we care for families, and we want this to continue to be the beautiful town in this beautiful mountain valley with wonderful people. I will do my best to make it happen. I have no control over who gets elected, but if I'm the mayor, I will make sure that we form a strong team. And I appreciate you all listening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnold. That's it. We finished. We made it on time. Now, I just want to let you know, advance polling starts tomorrow. You can vote tomorrow, 8 in the morning to 8 at night at the Rotacrest Hall. The next advance voting day is October 12th, same hours. General voting day is October 15th, all at the Rotacrest Hall. So everybody, let's do our duty and get out there and do it. And thank you all for being a wonderful audience, really well behaved.